we are privileged to have a speaker from different countries, prominent members of School Pedagogical Museum, ambition teacher at colleges and university, interesting research step from institution. Verena Perko, archaeologist and museologist with doctor study from both scientific field with many experiences with combination of practical museum work and museological theory, is assistant professor of heritage studies at University of Ljubljana. As influences lady in museum field in Slovenia, this is my word but believe me, she is the right person for presentation Slovenian museums for 21st century. Please.
Spoštovani kolegi, dragi prijatelji, en lep pozdrav v tej dvorani in hvala za povabilo. Dear colleagues, dear friends, thank you very much for invitation, and I hope you will have a success meeting here in Ljubljana. I wish you best wishes. Slovenian museums for the 21st century. Well, my colleague Branko Šuštar invited me to contribute. He said, please don't bother us with theory. Tell us something encouraging about Slovenian museums, for after all there is a lot that is new here. Okay, what assignment. If I want to say anything at all about museums in the 21st century, then I can avoid theory, but only theoretical. Okay. And excuse me. Super. Yeah. Okay. That's quite nice. Okay, I try to do okay. And yet, to be honest, there is a lot happening in our museums, and much of which we can be justifiably proud. There are Slovenian museums that can boast of certain venerable collections, such as the Zois collection, which became the foundation for the Deželni all-provincial museum established in 1824. It acquired a new building this is a part of collection, and this is the new building from 1888, graced by the paintings of Juri Šubic, the painter who also eternalized Schliemann's residence in Athens. After the First World War, the Provincial Museum became the National Museum of Slovenia. This is today National Museum. If we add to this the Regional Museum in Celje, established in 1882, the Straber Museum in Ptuj, with its exceptional archaeological collection and Mitra shrines, then the provincial, this is a Mitra, very well known, I'm an archaeologist as you hear, this is a very well known statue of Mitra from Ptuj. And then we can add Provincial Museum in Maribor, established in 1895. The exceptional private collections of Nikolai Sadnikar in Kamnik. Owner died a few months ago. Then the Soviet Museum in Slovenia, and at the end, the City Museum in Ljubljana, established in 1937. We have counted just about all important museum institutions in the period prior to the Second World War. After the war, New museums appeared in Slovenia. Provincial museums in Novo Mesto, Brežice. You can see all this M around the Slovenia. It's quite a very little territory, but there are many museums. Brežice, Metlika, Kamnik, and then numerous town museums in Idrija, Piran, Škofja Loka, and so on. These institutions of suspiciously bourgeois origin and soft work, which the new authorities after the Second World War, in spite of everything, in spite of everything, give up often shared totally inappropriate space in castles, which themselves symbolize the hated aristocratic class. That was a very special position, yeah? Museums were given the task of preserving the memory of the partisan epic, of course. They also became convenient warehouses for works of art confiscated from the defeated, the exiled, and the sentenced that arrived from federal centers without any kind of documentation regarding origin, which is also very special for Slovenian museums. As well as schoolroom with buttoxes, red pioneer scarves, and blue caps and tittered battens. Post-war generation will always have imprinted on their memories visits to deadly, boring, dusty museums featuring heroes of socialist labor, fading partisan pictures, yellowing documents in glass cases, the heroes of peasant revolts, and ethnographic collection, of course, the same but richly painted castle halls. But Slovenian post-war museums were exactly what the authorities needed them to be in order to preserve a neutral and objective memory of the justice of the victors and to blacken in the eyes of the public everything that was in opposition to people's power and communist revolution. But we must not overlook some exceptional museum events of this period. For example, the exhibition of situlae. You know all the fantastic situla from Narodni Museum, and if you not, please, Branko, guide them in National Museum. This has to be, yeah. This exhibition was organized in 1962 by the National Museum in Ljubljana in cooperation with museums from Vienna, Trieste and Bologna, which in the light of contemporary archaeological and art historical research in the southeastern Alps, including Slovenia, re-evaluated situlae. This is a situlae art from the Kdor era, and identified them as the start of contemporary European culture. That was really a big success, and we can see director, Professor Jože Kastelic. He was really a fantastic person, a very well-educated poet and archaeologist. The flourishing of Slovenian museums in the 70s was accompanied by museology as a new subject for students of history and art and archaeology at the University of Ljubljana Faculty of Arts. But this was the first such instance in Yugoslavia, which Zagreb not only quickly followed, but by establishing a chair with graduate and postgraduate study in 76, completely overshadowed Ljubljana. In the 90s, as is Professor Sergij Vlischer, very well known in the field of museology. In the 90s, Slovenia became independent state and faced many new beginnings. Departure from the shared state of Yugoslavia, and in particular entry into European Union, as well as, of course, globalization stimulated new social needs, primarily to do with identity. Slovenian museums which with barely noticed achievements have quietly sailed through the troubled waters of post-war socialism. Do we? Yes. Financial resources, regular employment, and straightforward retirement were, in spite of unvariable salaries, as certain as debt and taxes. Yes. Suddenly, found museums themselves in the crossfire of demands from capitalist society and the expectations of a dissatisfied public. They had really great expectations of from museums. The later put pressure on museums with new needs and changed tastes, largely as a result of internet use. When we look back, we have to admit Slovenian museums entered the deep waters of 90s quite unprepared, without real professionalism or developed doctrine. They did not awake on the threshold of the 21st century of their own accord, but were sobered only by a profound crisis, which is very characteristic not only for Slovenian museum, but for museums in the world, I think. Anyway, to be truthful and to keep my promise to my colleague, Branko, not to enter dangerous theoretical waters and to emphasize only positive, Slovenian museums have in recent years enjoyed some great success. Finally, 21st century, of course. Thanks to European funds, the new Alpine Museum was built in Mojstrana near Kranjska Gora. This is something to visit, yes. And then a Lipizzana Museum on the Karst region, really very, very nice, very good done, has been opened in Lipica. And then a new one, also very near to the Trieste and Kars region, Schratenova house or Hisha in Divača has been renovated, and the museum, very, very special museum, this is first in the world, I was told, that is Museum of Slovenian actors and actresses. And then, of course, another one. This is the most fantastic museum that was done in Slovenia, the cultural center of European space technologies in an ultra-modern building in the center of the out-of-the-way country settlement of Ljubljana. It's really very fantastic. In addition to presenting the work of the overlooked Slovenian researcher Herman Potočnik-Nordung, which was a very well-known researcher of the space, this museum also offers an unbelievable opportunity of 3 months residence to talented doctoral researchers from both arts and sciences from the world, to stay here in Vida and to visit Slovenia and to study. We should also mention a series of successful exhibitions, such as the permanent exhibition in Slovenian Ethnographic Museum, extensive renewal work in Provincial Museum of Celje, additions to the Koroška Provincial Museum and Slovengradec and Tolmin Museum, of course, again, archaeological sites from Tolmin, and then the renovation of Castle, Kieselstein Castle. Yeah, Branko, you forgot to mention that I am curator in crime. This is my main job.
Practical experience.
Yes, lady with experience, just to say. And the permanent exhibition, this is in our museum, Gorgeous Gurenska. The appearance of new town museum collections, new one also in Chernomel, and then I have to mention an exceptional international success of Provincial Museum in Regional Museum in Maribor. Within the framework of European Capital of Culture, this museum organized numerous international events and entered the European cultural spotlight. I am particularly happy about the opening of a depot for furniture in the former cinema Kino Partizan. And they organized an open depot with some musical events and some exhibition, and so it's really very well done. Unfortunately, I cannot avoid ending on theoretical ground, and thus disappointing my colleague. Slovenians too, although we try to avoid regular museum education like the block, must eventually accept that contemporary museums are not scientific institutions. Nor are they any longer institutions where everything happens because of or around collections. This is no longer main point. Museums are media. We have to accept and we have to understand. If we acknowledge that, then we are in a state of constant competition for visitors here with the other media forces such as TV, cinema, and internet, and the mass of printed media. Yes, so our only and greatest advantage is the original museum object, which through interpretative, contextual, and interdisciplinary work can tell 1,001 stories to the modern visitor who is starved of identity. This is the first task in a museum. But for that to happen, museum workers must accept that research into museum object is not our primary concern. Oh, okay, it is, of course, the foundation of what we do. Of course, there is no question. But we need to add to it the recognition of the needs, habits, and expectations of contemporary society, which is very diverse, very variable. In order to be able to respond to these needs in a way, in a way that is at least slightly competitive with other media, museum workers must master modern technology with one hand and incorporate into the museum's way of communicating. Communication is the most important doing in museums, task in museums. But above all, the museum must become a space for collective memory, a place where even the weakest find an advocate, where communities meet, and with the help of original museum objects, the wisdom of past culture is disseminated. Museums are no longer shrines to science, but rather reflect critically on it. Yeah, science needs to be controlled. They are no longer political dependents. And the minister is just gone, okay? But social actors, and on the basis of heritage-based messages, encourage democratic and responsible decision-making about our common future. Modern museums reject the culture of glitter and glamour. They are oriented towards empathy and altruism. They promote concern for the weak and protection of the environment. Museums communicate and preserve the wisdom of those who went before us and seek better paths into the future. They share responsibility for the present and, of course, for the future. And this is a question of ethics. I cannot imagine a good doctor without years of experience and with a fundamental mastery of theoretical knowledge. Of course, you may say that there is a big difference between doctors and museum workers, and I would totally agree with you. if doctor makes a mistake, his patient dies. If museum workers make mistakes, then memory dies. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleague Verena, for presentation. I hope interesting questions, comments. Please, Mr. Sunday Moses Yameona from Nigeria. He's historian and he teaches on one teacher colleagues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alligator. I'm happy to be here. I am Dr. Moses Sunday Dayola Omoyeni from Ondo State in Nigeria. I thank the presenter for giving us this wonderful presentation this evening concerning museum and the 21st century. I'm happy to be associated with Dr. Blanco's organization. He has wonderfully tried for me to be here today. The question I want to ask is that when Madame was saying beautiful words concerning the establishment of museums and all that, and she mentioned that I was expecting that pertaining to, because museums are not just there to exhibit the artifacts alone, but it should be seen as a center for cultural evolution, for cultural diversity, for cultural learning, and all that. I was expecting that Madame would say something concerning the vocation therein, because all the relics, all the artifacts were made by someone at a particular point in life of either the exhibitor or of the community. For now, when we are talking about 21st century, we observe that youths are restless because they find no job. They find no job. Museum could have been another avenue for them to learn the arts of their forebears. In coming to the museum, in learning, in seeing all the exhibits, a kind of vocation will emanate from them, will develop in them. For instance, in sculpturing, in tying and dyeing of clothes, in painting, and all the rest of it, people will benefit. And that is a way for the 21st century that our youth can benefit. So I was expecting that Mama will mention that. That's my observation, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your observations. I have to say that museums are very characteristic for every region, and probably our situation is much diverse than the situation of museums in your country. But I agree, the position of the young people is really very critical and they suffered a lot, and I agree that museums, they have to help and to share not only knowledge but also opportunity to learn all these are, let's say, traditional crafts or even something new, even the new technological knowledge, really they can find probably new jobs or something like that. I agree with you. Thank you very much.
May I? Thank you. From Greece, University of Crete, thank you for the acceptance also of our participation. I would like to congratulate Professor Perko because in a few minutes she gave us the new context of the museum. And it is important that if we have in mind this new context, I think that we will create an energetic and not a passive museums.
Yes.
Two questions. Two questions. In the same direction. For you, for the ordinary people, for the students, what the museum means in Slovenia. First question. Second one. You said that it is a place of communication.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It will be very helpful from your point of view to give us some examples, if you want. And do you believe that also without history and museums we have no memory, also perhaps we have no political and social consciousness?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Right. About communication in museum. This is a basic characteristic of the museum, because new museum is media. So this is characteristic. So how we do that in Slovenia? As you have seen, there are a variety of museums in Slovenia, and mostly of them they are traditional museums, which means that they are concentrated in researching work on objects. But many of them are also communicating really a lot of messages, because this is really very important. And of special interest now it's this traditional knowledge, which is linked to the some museum objects or only with the population from the same region, and the museums have a task to link together the academics, the students, the usual people, because they, even if they are usual people, let's say, they have a very rich knowledge about the material, about the traditional crafts, and so on. And museum is the place where you can ask also, or you can organize some international, let's say, projects, and find the money for do some work together. What was the first question? I forget. It was about the...
How students
oh yes, it's...
Slovenia
Yeah, look, it's...
see museums.
Yes, we organize now the study of museology. I mentioned it was the beginning of the 70s, but then there's just stopped. It's some kind of museological, not museological, but museographical knowledge. But what we need is a knowledge about how and why to communicate, and you have to understand the needs of the new society, and this is really important. And there is a new study in Ljubljana University. This is so-called heritological studies, and we try to to tell this heresy, let's say. They are not really very happy in all museums about that. Yeah, I am quite ignored person in this country. Thank you to call me and to say that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Two questions. I'm calling. Thank you for your your good examination. I want two questions. First question is the financial support from museum. This is a problem, is big problem in the Serbia and all countries, in the Balkanian countries as well. Second question is the approach from the persons who are disabled in museum area. I'm partially sighted man, but it's no one museum in Belgrade is not adapted from the partially sighted and the blind people. It's difficult and very good, very big problem. What do you think?
Yeah.
First
Okay.
question is financial
Yeah.
question. Second question and approach
Yes.
technologies and approaches places to the museum. For
Yeah.
the deaf and hearing and the partially sighted and the deaf blind and many.
Thank you very much. If I would be, just a moment, please. Yeah, if I would be really good in financial questions, I would be minister, not here. Curator in the museum. Yeah, it's problem. No. I know this is really a very big and massive problem. But we have to understand that this is, I think that in that moment museums will be no more supported as it was, because we really were in such a country that we were supported by little money, but it was always money. And now it will be dependent on our work, on our satisfaction, which would be done for the needs of the public. I'm very sure. It's very hard what I'm saying, but I learned really in Zagreb by Professor Tomislav Šola. I think this is correct. It will be hard.
Museum for the blind.
Yes. This is a question, look, if we are talking about traditional museum, there is no need for public needs, because we are only doing our research. I show you the man in excavating or doing something else. If we are talking of the new museum, and if we are thinking about the new needs of the society, then we have to respond to them. And I mentioned also the groups of population that they are all blind or deaf, I don't know, and we have to give them opportunity, but not only by learning them or teaching them, but also to include them in our work, being part of our process. And this is a museum. It's not, and I'm first to say that, look at me, not only to teach and to be, but to invite them and to be empathic. This is what we have to learn our society, to teach our society, to be empathic, empathetic, I hope so. Yeah, altruistic. This is the most important thing.
Yes, inclusion for persons for disabled in the society.
Yes, inclusion.
Is this connected in the society, in the blindness and the hearing and many invalids and the disabled persons in the input to society in the museum is given.
Yes, and if you're thinking on that way on museums, then it's absolutely positive vision of our work in museums.
Of course.
Okay, but no more researchers. I was joking.
Thank you. I asked